Right. You gotta tease it out.
Wait, I gotta stop joking because I'll be on the front end of the episode later on, sounding like a clown.
Well, you know, I'm not funny at all, so somebody's got to pick up the slack.
All right.
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
Yo, what's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
Hey, what's the deal?
What's good, everybody? I'm Steve Discourse.
What up, y'all? It's your girl, Jay Callie.
Back with another episode of What's the Deal? There's a lot of politics going on, mostly 2020 election-leaning type stuff. What's going on, Jay Callie?
Well, we got a new candidate who's announced a presidential run.
You guys will never guess who it is.
Okay.
Elizabeth Warren unveils her plan to what? Forgive who? Student loan debt.
Texas illegally blocking voters. This is a scandal that's rocking the nation.
We're all surprised. I know we can't believe it.
Talk about it later.
Okay. The latest debate that's going on is, should prisoners be allowed to vote from prison?
What?
Is that redundant? Prisoners in prison?
Oh, yes, it actually
All
is.
right.
And plus, the latest normal thing that you're doing that's killing our planet. What are you doing, people? Go green. All this and more.
On today's episode of What's the Deal? Where do we go from there? Do we usually start the show from here?
No,
We do?
You
Yeah.
usually pitch me the
Oh, yeah, I
first
do. Oh, that's right.
story and then I start
I had a brain fart. All right. We do this every week, folks. I swear. So, okay, yeah, listen, the people have had enough. They're on the edge of their seats. They can't stand the tension anymore. Who announced they're running for 2020 president?
Well, let's start here. He's white, he's male, and he's invited to the cookout. It's everyone's favorite, Joe the Biden.
the Biden?
Yes, he announced literally yesterday, even though last week he announced that he was going to announce, so we all knew. He formally announced yesterday that he will be running for president of the United States of America. Lots of people are excited about it. We're going to talk a little later about the people who are not very excited about it. I mean, I'm going to talk about it now, but like after I talk about why we're excited.
Oh, I was wondering how much later?
No, literally in
Okay.
like 25 more seconds.
You really threw me off. My face was like, what? Wait, did we discuss this?
Yeah, so, you know, some people are saying, okay, well, he's a shoo-in. He's already a front runner. Everybody knows him. He was the vice president to, like, America's favorite president, factually proven, of all time, Barack Obama. Like, he's a shoo-in. He's going to, like, even if he doesn't win, at the very least, he's going to go very, very far in this election. And some people are like, maybe not. Also, he announced yesterday that one of our black faves, Simone Sanders, is going to be one of his lead political strategists on this campaign. A lot of us know who Simone Sanders is because she's always like on CNN talking politics. She's like the cute, fluffy, bald-headed black girl that, you know, stirs the pot a little bit and speaks and says the things that's always on her mind. So she's had a lot to say as well. Recently, though, about Joe Biden kind of coming under fire for being a creep. He's been hit with some Me Too. Yeah, he's a creepy hugger.
Yeah, he's got some unusual hugging techniques.
So the thing
Is that a way to put it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's Me Too. I think as it was birthed, we were really coming after all the people who were like being super duper rapey or actual rapists, and people who were just like really crossing the boundaries and clarifying like what is rape, what is sexual assault, what is sexual violence. And I don't know if it's like important that we come for everybody, including the people who are just like, what? He gave a creepy hug. Off with his head. Like, I think that there's a line between who you need to destroy and who you just need to say, hey, so don't do that. And I think that maybe the creepy hugging can be a hey, don't do that moment and not an off with his head moment. But a lot of people have canceled Joe Biden. Even I don't know if he even still gets to get a plate to the cookout. I don't know. People are mad. But I will say that the hugs, I watched some hug videos and I was thoroughly creeped out.
Yeah. I mean, and he goes in for like the cheek kiss and a lot of things like that. And he's either an attacker or just like a very physical
her.
touch type of, I don't know. Or I can't think of a better word than attacker. Sounds weird,
the
but
cheek kiss is creepy. I know, the cheek kiss has gotten men in trouble before. Amari Hardwick almost got destroyed last week over a cheek kiss. 2 cheek kisses. He was wilding. But Joe, the hug is like after my arms have gone limp to my sides and now I'm like shoving you away from me and you're still gripping me around the waist. I need you to know that these are not subtle clues to let me go. I'm at this point kind of begging you to let me go, and you are still holding on. Let me go, sir.
So the question is, at what point do you, as the person who doesn't want that contact, become obligated to be like, okay, dude, that's enough. Get off of me. Don't touch me.
So I don't think it's hard for men to kind of understand the awkward position that women are put in when y'all are doing things that make us uncomfortable. There are a ton of women who are just like, yo, they don't mind like screaming on you or just saying it clearly. But there are, for most of us, kind of this fear because lots of men get to kind of freak out and start spazzing out and cursing you out and yelling at you and just being very aggressive, especially if you're a woman who lives in a city like D.C. Like, men have fragile egos.
So if you do just state that plainly, like, look, man, get off of me. Men are gonna react poorly to that. We're just not gonna take it. Yeah. Oh man.
Can I have your
See.
phone number? No. Now I gotta get cussed out. It's just no. It's just no. So that's why it's hard for women to just say I don't want to, because if it's just me and you in this space, you might go off on me and I can't beat you in a fight. So I kind of just have to wait until the moment passes and then follow up later and say, hey, that didn't make me feel good.
All right, so yeah, decide how you will about Joe Budden's chosen method of physical touch and embrace. The other thing is, he's a heavy front runner. I think some polls have him around 30%, and Sanders in like the mid or low 20s, and then other people are kind of straggling behind those two. We're definitely going to get into talk about the candidates in a couple weeks or months because it's really early. Yeah. But there's a lot of people. I think the major concern, and for the record, he's really maybe the only candidate I would actively oppose. And
talk about it.
I'm not a big.
No, I want you to
I'm not like I'm not a big fan of all the other candidates, but other ones I'd be much happier to go along with if need be. Because I think he's his whole mentality and his whole style of politics is very old school, and some of his votes and some of his outspokenness as a public official in the past have been just really way off base. And some people say, well, they fit for the time, and that's okay. I get it. Well, it's not okay. I get it. But his thing to me just feels like, which way is the political wind blowing, and then it's going to take that wind a little while to actually start moving him that direction. And I'm just not interested in that. I don't think that's leadership. So that doesn't interest me too much. Somebody like Kamala Harris, who I have other real policy issues with in her career, at least I appreciate that she seems to have a philosophy and viewpoints on her own that aren't going to be just so, well, which way is the wind blowing kind of what are we doing? Yeah. What are we doing now? Oh, well, like Joe Biden was a big supporter of the crime bill, and he had a lot of strong language about how criminals should or shouldn't be treated. And like there's clips and videos from the 90s of him talking about that. And so now he's kind of like, oh, we're not talking like that anymore. That's not the way we talk about law enforcement and criminal justice. Okay, fine. And he changed, but I don't know, it's just not interesting to me. And I don't want to vote on a guy on credit necessarily that he's going to go along with the times, because maybe he's not with the times in a way that I want necessarily. And people have also talked about, well, isn't there room for growth and redemption? And I find that interesting because that comes up a lot with politicians and their past records and histories. And it's like, yeah, you can redeem yourself at home, in your community, with a nonprofit, volunteer work. You redeem yourself anywhere else. Why do you have to redeem yourself on the highest stage of politics in our country? It's not my business to get that. Like, you got to be so privileged to think you deserve the right to get the highest level of an office on the benefit of the doubt of redemption. Like, no, redeem yourself on your own. That's a personal journey. It has nothing to do with voters. So that right there, I blocked that out right away. As far as his political style and the idea that we need to just shake hands across aisles and just be all, can we get along? I got problems with that, but I get that that's your view. But as far as redemption, no. If you want a personal redemption, you go take a walk through the mountains and meditate and reflect and stuff and change your personal life on your own. But that has nothing to do with the entire country. You don't have to be a leader of the entire country. So that's
I really want to dig into your opinion a lot more, but we just have so many other stories to talk about, and I know that we could be talking about presidential elections and, the runners literally all day long. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to put it on the table. Let's talk about it when we really start getting into the campaign, because right now, like you said, it's just super duper early to dive in because the facts aren't really the facts yet.
Yeah, we'll let all that shake out. But anyway, there's a lot of reasons people like him as well, so I don't want to leave it on a note of me just straight criticizing him, because he's still a heavy favorite and a lot of people still support him.
Right.
So next on the ballot here for our episode is Elizabeth Warren. She made a lot of splashes for her proposal that she unveiled this week to forgive student loan debt. What's the details on this, Jay Callie?
So Elizabeth Warren, who every time I think about her, I literally just can't help but to laugh because there are so many memes out of her right now, and this is my first introduction to who she even is. So sorry, I'm laughing, but it's not a funny story I'm about to tell. Elizabeth Warren has proposed like a kind of, I think it's a pretty well thought out plan to eliminate tons of student loan debt for people who have been crippled by student loan debts for so many years of their lives. If you guys don't know, or if you for some reason haven't been living in the United States of America for the past decade at least, people have literally not been able to move on with their lives because of the amount of student loan debt that we have accrued as a generation. So there are people who are literally $100,000 in debt and now can't buy a home or can't have children or can't have a wedding or whatever other big life decision you want to make because of how much debt you have. So Elizabeth Warren has proposed that up to $50,000, which is kind of a big amount, can be eliminated for certain people depending on where your social class is, and I think that's for
your income.
That's for people who make less than $100,000 a year. And then as your income increases, obviously the amount of debt that you'll be forgiven of decreases, but that it really focuses on people who have less financial stability, largely people in the middle class, because middle class people typically are college educated and yada, 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 but also have this huge amount of debt prohibiting them from living their lives. Elizabeth Warren also proposed that the United States of America will pay up $640 billion up front to kind of kickstart this debt elimination. And then over the course of 10 years, $610 billion more dollars will be paid, but that will be over time. But essentially, this could be great for both people and for the economy if the plan is executed effectively. Of course, like everything else, this plan has a little bit of pushback. There are some people who don't agree with it. Of course, the rich don't ever want to give up their money, so they're like, what? How come we don't get the same amount of money as poor people? Because you're rich. Duh. It would also largely benefit, according to a source that I read, I think it was LA Times or New York Post, those are the two that I read, that a lot of African American people would benefit from it because they have less assets, family assets to draw from, so they're more likely to have student loan debt. So, this would benefit African Americans in a large sense. It's just, I think it's good all around. There are some people who are saying, well, no, this isn't actually a good plan. It's not going to be as great as we all think. You're not going to have all the benefits. I think, Steve, you have a little bit better understanding of the people who disagree with it than I do.
Yeah, I think some of it, a lot of the criticism that I saw was really just about where the actual total dollar amounts will end up going. Mm-hmm. It'll skew towards middle and upper class incomes. Mm-hmm. But that's really just because, some of the numbers show that they end up taking on larger numbers of debt. Mm-hmm. And for other reasons, lower income folks don't take on as much debt. Maybe they didn't complete college, so they only have a couple years worth of loans, or maybe they just said, let me get an associate's degree or some other kind of certification, and those don't cost as much as the full 4 years of a university. Or maybe they didn't go to private school, so that's not as much student loan. So there's reasons that lower income folks don't quite take on dollar for dollar the same amount of debt. So overall, if you look at it, this plan will give middle and higher income families more dollars of relief, but that doesn't mean it'll be more impactful for them, right?
I'm confused about how, though. It seems like it would be equally as impactful if you have less debt, then less debt would be forgiven. Unless I'm
exactly right. So I think if some people are looking at the data and just seeing where more of the dollars are going to end up going, but it doesn't mean it's going to be effectively buying more benefit for those folks, right? And then also this around like $100,000 of income, I think, is when that $50,000 starts to scale down as far as, and it's capped at $250,000 of income. Once you earn more than that, you can't get any of this relief. Which, I think sounds fine because, you got 250 G's, you got a lot of options. So you can make your life work with that kind of income, so you don't necessarily need this benefit.
Right. That's $250,000 a year is an awesome salary. Even like in American economy, that's a really good income. Now the thing is, she's getting a lot of pushback because some lawmakers are saying, well, $50,000 is just a lot of money. It's just too much. Most people don't need that much money in loan forgiveness, and they're saying if you really gave people $10,000 in loan forgiveness, that would help like a third of the American population that's currently in student loan debt. So they're like, why are you asking for so much? And it seems like she's trying to eliminate debt for a large majority of people who have loan debt, and they're like, well, everybody doesn't get to eat at the table, okay? We'll give you a third, we'll give you $10,000 maybe, and let's see if we can work with it. And I don't know if she should take that and accept it, or if the government is kind of bluffing. I don't know.
Well, but that's politics.
I don't want her to get shut down entirely, but I want us to get something.
But that's politics, right? If she would have said, how about $5,000 for everyone? That would get negotiated down to zero through politics, right? So it's like you got to say what you want, and then we can come to a solution. So I think that's no problem. But also I think, there was a time when you needed a high school diploma to get a job. Yeah. And we never charged anybody for high school.
Right.
So if you need these college degrees, it's one thing to charge people because maybe there's some difference in college versus high school. There's really not when you really simplify it. But this is what we need. This is what we got people going getting masters and degrees and PhDs just to get a leg up in the hiring process for jobs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's where we're at. Yeah, a lot of people, right? People who would never think to want it or who probably arguably don't even need it for their work, but if it's a leg up. So, we got to relieve people from this debt. And also, here's the other thing. And Warren mentions this, it's also as much about economic stimulus as well, because the fact of the matter is, if you're low income and you're paying $152, $300 a month, $400 even, I think the average student loan payment is like $300 something a month in some of the journalism I read. That's a lot of money that's not going anywhere. That could go into the economy directly. If you're a low enough income, all $300 of those dollars a month are getting spent somewhere, right? We're not going to go and then tuck it into investments and things like that. It's going to go right into the economy. It's going to boost spending on all types of things. So that might lead to, who knows, hiring and more hours and maybe rise in wage because people need more work and now they're looking for better workers, all types of things like that. So I think it's going to have, benefit all around.
Well, I really want to see this thing work out. I honestly think that her taking this stance, like in the 2020 elections, I think that tackling student loans and going the financial route is a really good platform for her to have young voters. That my ears are perked up as a millennial, as a person who now has student loan debt. Like, it's a great platform. So my eyes are definitely watching Elizabeth Warren during these elections. I know that for a fact. All right, so let's go ahead and take a break right here. It seems like a good moment to take a little breather and make a little switcheroo after we come back.
I like it. Sounds good. Stay tuned. What's the deal?
While we're on this break, we want to remind you, do not forget to share the podcast. Share it to all of your social media platforms, your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitter. Don't forget to use the hashtag #What'sTheDealPod whenever you share anything. And like and subscribe the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen. Thanks for spreading the love. You know we appreciate you.
All right, everybody, and we're back. I'm Steve Discourse.
And it's your girl, Jay Callie. We just did a lot of talking about politics. We're going to take a little turn here. Earlier today, we mentioned that it was something very normal that we're all doing. Once again, it's actually killing our environment. Steve, talk to me about it. What's going on?
Okay, so this one threw me for a super loop. Like, I was just really aggravated when I read this. Similar to, so you probably remember in the other episode when we said that those environmentally friendly tote bags that you be bringing around, dum dum dum, not so environmentally friendly. I still think they are, but anyway, similarly,
you don't hear the facts.
Similarly, what you didn't know is grocery shopping is bad for the environment.
Grocery shopping. No, not the bags, not the artifices that you use. No, the act itself of grocery shopping. Stop getting in your cars. Stop walking through those sliding doors. Do not grocery shop, people. It is killing the planet. Tell me more.
It's so, like, my head is spinning from this. So here's how we found out it's bad, right? It's not bad in itself, but there's a better way.
Oh, God, tell me.
The better way is counterintuitive because it's getting those meal plans delivered to your house.
Uh-oh.
This is the study that researchers took on, right? Because a lot of people have kind of thought, okay, well, I'm not, who is it? Blue Apron or Sunbasket, or all these things like, oh, those sound nice. But like they bring all that packaging, there's styrofoam or containers or whatever, the ice packs, the bags, the plastic containers, everything. It's just so, and this was one of my things that made me a little uncomfortable about it, is I said, well, is all that trash? When I go to the grocery store, I get a bunch of vegetables in a bag, or maybe some meat that's in a plastic or something that's in a cardboard bag, but generally they all go in one bag, and everything isn't packaged up in a little measurement for me for dinner tonight. But when compared overall, those are actually more effective somehow, and they have less like carbon footprint from all the resources.
I tell you how?
Yeah.
So the thing is, and this is the thing that makes it scary, is because of people who are going to get Blue Apron and Sunbasket and throw all that stuff away. You're supposed to set the packaging out, and they come and take it back to the store.
Wait, you are?
Yeah, like not the little like the little seasoning bags and stuff like that, but like the ice packs and all that stuff. You're supposed to, if you leave it out, your mail carrier will send it back to Blue Apron, and they reuse that stuff. So many people just throw it in the garbage.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a game changer. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so,
nobody does it, but it says so on the packaging, like, hey, send me back outside, and we'll go back to the store, but no one fucking reads. This is America.
So it's weird. I mean, I don't really know how far I believe this research. Kind of like the tote bag thing. It's like, I see what you're saying if you shine one light on it, but they're kind of looking at the idea of food waste, that people buy stuff and then they don't use it, so they throw it out, and there's less food waste from this. They're saying it's a little bit better for like the supply chain, where it's more efficient to get the growers over to Sunbasket or whatever and then mail it right to you. There's less waste in delivering over there than you drive there and back and forth and this and that. And I just saw this and I was like, listen, man, we're really taking this way too far. Like, if you're telling me I can't go to the grocery store, this is just nuts. What can we do? We can't do anything. You know what I saw the other day?
We can't do anything.
I saw the other day, local spot in D.C., coffee stirrers, had a little flat raw linguine sticks of pasta. That's what their coffee stirrers are.
Is so disgusting. It's so environmentally friendly, but like, if your coffee is really hot, would the noodle not become just a regular piece of like, am I supposed to drop the noodle down to the bottom of the cup?
Just a little coffee brewed pasta.
Ew.
You ain't never had pasta with coffee sauce?
Ew. Ew.
No,
you
throw it out.
Yes.
You throw it out, but theoretically you could leave it in there and just like eat it real quick. And if it tasted bad.
How is this better than a wooden? The plastic ones I get. Like, we shouldn't be using all this plastic. But the wooden ones are very much biodegradable. So why can't we just continue using wood? Oh, because it kills trees.
Well, but then again, how many trees or how bad for the environment is a factory making linguine to stir your coffee? So I don't know.
But they're making the linguine anyway.
There's no way to win. If you're listening to this episode, just run
give
away.
Up. Don't even recycle. Keep your cans. Throw them in the trash. Put them in the garbage. Let them end up out in the Pacific Ocean with the rest of our American and worldly garbage. It's like, no, please.
I'm gonna go build a house out on that floating island. That'd be pretty sick.
You can't stand on it. It's floating like 1 inch below the water surface. It's not solid. It's just huge.
I'll put a net around it.
You're gonna live on a net
And
that's
throw
floating
some
in the
dirt.
middle
No,
of the
throw some
ocean?
dirt on it. Bring some sod out. Put grass. Build a house right
Good
there. It'd
job.
be great.
Yeah, good
All
job.
right.
You're gonna
So
be a floater, literally.
anyway, listen. Don't go to the grocery store. It's killing the planet.
Go to the grocery store because Blue Apron costs a ton of freaking money, and they always trying to make it seem like it's cheaper. It's cheaper for people who eat at Nobu every night. It's not cheaper for me who buys the $4 pack of chicken breasts from the Safeway. Leave me alone. I don't want Blue Apron.
All right.
Go into the store.
So that's, on that depressing note that we can't do anything right. Just living is bad for the environment. It's kind of what I'm learning. Speaking of bad for the environment, bad for the voting environment. So we've reported on a lot of stories in the past about voter fraud and everything, right?
Yeah.
We're pivoting back to politics, by the way, folks, so stick with us. And there was a settlement in Texas this week about 95 or 100,000 voters that they were trying to purge from the voter registrations for being, illegally registered. The settlement said, no, bullshit.
What?
It's not, you guys are going to have to pay the lawyers who sued you because this is totally wild. And so essentially what happened is, again, it's more of this, right wing really, and that's not a partisan statement or something. It just is. There's no left wing people running around making accusations and lawsuits of voter fraud. It's just not. So it's a right wing strategy that's been going on for years of trying to drum up fear about voter fraud. And Donald Trump this happened in January, Donald Trump even latched onto this story and said, oh my God, see, it's rampant, Mexicans lying about voting. And in February, a judge paused this and said, hold on, I think this is pretty shaky ground you guys are on. So they announced this list of 100,000 folks in January. And by February, only 80 of those names had been proven to be like wrongfully registered.
Are you serious?
Only 80 in February, which is why the judge was like, okay, hold on. We're going to have to just slow this down because something doesn't look right. And so, yeah, it's just nuts. They're looking at things like folks with, Spanish sounding last names and things like that.
Of course they are.
And essentially what they did is they thought these people were illegally registered, but they were naturalized citizens. So they had at some point on some form somewhere in the government checked that they were citizens, right?
Why would they do that? It was a mistake?
No. These people at some point in their lives filled out a government form or something. And this is what happens with these right-wing folks. They find any string that they can grasp and pull on or anything and say, hop, this person might be legal. That. If they find two names that match similarly or something, they'll decide to purge one of them, even though it might be two people with the exact same name. And they don't do due diligence to say, well, before we actually purge them, let's double check them in a legit way. Nope. And that's what this is a reflection of. It's really wild because, we got stories of states voting to make, illegally voting a felony. I really tried to find before the show started a story that I read and didn't check off last week of a state that passed that said if you even fill out mistaken information on a voter form or something like that, that's a felony now. And it's really crazy. So when you have these things combined, it makes it hard for people to vote. For a lot of people,
that's kind of what the goal is.
What if you? Well, right. So that's what I mean. Like it's a really strong strategy to make it a crime to do anything vaguely, remotely mistaken or willfully wrong about voting to where you actually go to jail. Which we covered the story about a woman who went to jail for 5 years because she didn't know she couldn't vote as an ex-felon. And it's really nuts. It's a super comprehensive strategy that they're working on. And so speaking of her voting as an ex-felon, they were making some splashes this week in the presidential campaign about what?
Should prisoners be allowed to vote? Yes, current prisoners in current prison. And to that I say, I don't know. I've never even thought about that. I've never even considered it. Everyone's always talking about, should an ex-con be allowed to vote? And it's like, yeah, why not? It doesn't make sense that they aren't. But to actually be like, wait, well, what about the people in prison? And I was just like, whoa, wasn't ready for it. Now I'm ready to talk about it, but I still don't quite know what my answer to it is. And I want to know, what do you all think? Before, let me give you the details. So, essentially, this is how this conversation got all started up. This past week, there was a Virginia governor, Terry McAuliffe, who signed these orders to restore the rights to votes for more than 200,000 convicted felons who are living in the state of Virginia. And people were like, hey, you're overstepping your boundaries. What are you doing? We don't let people vote, blah, 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 blah. And, he's obviously not overstepping his boundaries. People just don't want to see the disenfranchised become franchised. And it kind of started kickstarting this whole conversation about if prisoners should be allowed to vote or not. And I heard some really interesting quotes as I was kind of doing my research about this. And one of them that I'm going to read right now, it says, "We cannot hold citizens to account for violating our laws while denying them a say over those laws."
Ooh.
How can you expect me to uphold the law, to respect the law, blah, 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 and I don't even have a voice in it? You're literally putting the weight of the law on top of me and not giving me any gloves, any strength, any armor, nothing to fight back. And you're basically saying, just lie down and take it. And even when I'm no longer a prisoner and I get out of prison and I can say, hey, I want to speak up for myself because the law wasn't on my side or I was wrongfully convicted or whatever may have happened that wasn't of the law, I can't even fight back because I don't have the right as a citizen to do that because I've been disenfranchised. It's not okay. There was another study that was done by a social psychologist. His name is Tom Tyler, and it proved, that people who have some sort of sense of ownership over their government are more likely to participate in that government and are less likely to commit crimes. So essentially, if we want to look at that on the flip side, what I'm hearing is people who don't have a voice or a sense of power within their government are more likely to commit crimes. So you're putting them in this cycle of being criminals because they're like, well, I'm powerless, I'm voiceless. All I can do in order to stay afloat is illegal stuff. It's literally all I can do is things that are illegal. I can't get a job. I don't have a voice in this country. I'm just drifting here as someone who has no dignity and no respect. So it's like, what can we give them that factually, according to this research, would lessen their chances of going back to prison or committing more crimes while simultaneously disrespecting the fact that they are still American citizens?
Yeah. I mean, to say also, think about it this way. They're literally in prison. Prisons are run based on political decisions for budgeting and staffing and policies. What if your experience in the prison is problematic? What if something's going on that's deeply troubling and maybe it's legal, but it really shouldn't be, and now you have no way to address that, let alone anything else that's happening out in the country. And the other thing is, like you said, I've never really thought about this aspect of voting rights for felons before, because we have talked about returning citizens back in the community. Should they vote? But to me, the other question is, what's the worst that can happen? And that's what that was my same logic about people who were in prison and are free now. What's the worst that can happen? Like, they're not going to all band together and vote on some heinous thing and make murder legal or any of that. Like, what's going to happen?
The purge.
But you said it better. I mean, I almost just really I kind of want to end this conversation when you were done speaking, because you really put it well. Right? And that really changed my view on it, because going into this week, I was like, okay, sure, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't know if I really feel one way either way about it. Like, all right, whichever way we go. But you laid it out there the best. And I'm still talking for some reason.
Shut up. I'm kidding, no. But no, yeah, again, it's very important that we just always look at things from all these perspectives. I'm glad that I was able to say something that clarified your own opinion. My opinion personally still is not super duper clear. I still want to go home and lay on my pillow and just think and ponder. But listeners out there, think about what you think and think about what you think. Get your opinions together and let me know. I really want to engage with y'all more on my social media, like my Instagram. I'm doing a shameless plug here. It's JCallie, ITSJAYCALLI. Please hit me in the DMs. You can go on my comments for this week's latest episode, whatever you want to do. But just let me know what you think about this topic, because I would really like to kind of bring it back around to next week when I've had a chance to think about it and restate clearly my feelings and my thoughts and my opinion on it. So hit me up.
Mm-hmm. I'll leave a comment on your IG. I'll do it for sure.
To talk to you.
Guaranteed. Okay. That's it. That's it for today.
Yeah, it is.
I love when we come to these just emergency break abrupt halts. no one was ready for that unless they were marking their notes down. Okay, they talked about that story. Talked about this has got to be the last one. I don't know if people listen that way. I usually don't. So I'm just like, oh, this is the end of the show, huh? All right. So.
Sorry, I can't contain myself. Shut
but
up.
Endgame did come out this week.
Uh-oh.
And we didn't even announce that at the beginning of the show.
We don't have to. The people are still here, y'all.
Spoiler alert.
If you don't want to hear us talk about Endgame, if you haven't seen it yet for some odd reason, bye. Goodbye. If you would like to hear what we think about Endgame, stay on the line.
Literally, like we're about to close the show right now and then keep talking. So, with that said, I'm Steve Discourse.
It's your girl, Jay Callie.
And that's the deal.
All right, people, thanks so much for tuning in another week. What's the Deal podcast?
You can follow us on social media
At Steve Discourse.
and you can catch Jay Callie.
It's Jay Callie, ITSJAYCALLI.
We got to send a big shout out to Clifford Cartel for composing our theme music. And wherever you listen to this, make sure you subscribe.
Family, subscribe.
Write us a review.
Share the podcast. Subscribe to it wherever you listen.
Share it with your friends, family, your loved ones. Heck, share it with your enemies. We don't care. Just help us spread that word. We truly appreciate it. Or is it? We're going to talk about Endgame. So I saw it on Thursday night at 2:45 in the morning, which is a reckless move, but
Okay,
I mean,
there's no
whatever.
such thing as night in the morning, but I'm going to let you keep talking.
You know what I'm talking about. In the darkness, in the cover of darkness,
Okay.
2:45 a.m. And that was a weird choice because it messed up my Friday, but like whatever. My work schedule is weird like
We don't
that. I
care
can manage
about
it.
you or your schedule. Talk about the movie.
Endgame. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was when he said, when Sam came through and he was like, Cap, it's Sam. Are you there? And I was like, what's happening? And then it was like dramatic music, glowing orb in the sky. Out walks T'Challa, Shuri, and Okoye. And I was like, oh my God! And I think the reason I was so excited is because after the Hulk snapped and it was like Thanos came blasting through the ceiling and nothing happened, and this battle ensued, I totally forgot that we were even trying to get our people back. I was totally like wrapped up in like, oh my God, this fight, this battle, who's gonna win? And then our people came back and I was like, damn it, yes. The whole movie was about getting y'all back. And I had totally forgot that. And here you come. They're all coming. And then they all came through. Peter Parker, the Wasp. Oh, my God. Everyone was back. The whole galaxy right here, ready to take out Thanos.
It was pretty cool.
It hurt my heart a little bit because, as you all know who actually follow me on my social platforms, know that I'm Team Thanos. So,
listen,
you know,
I was still giving him respect up until the very end of that battle because he can just bang. He can fight. Anytime they had something for him, he was like, I got that. Don't worry. Who was he fighting? Scarlet Witch? And he pulled off the Power Stone and just puffed her in the face with it?
She was fucking him up, though.
Yeah, no, it was cool. It was cool.
Wait, no, Scarlet Witch, you ruined everything I've ever loved. I don't even know who you are.
Yo, that was cold.
Who the fuck are you?
That was so cold. I was
I
like,
love
yeah.
him. Who are you? Move.
I did like that.
That was funny.
I'm glad you reminded me of that part because that was probably one of my top 5 moments in the movie. It was so cold.
It was so cold. It was his tone of voice, too, because he wasn't like, fuck you. I have no feeling like, who are you? Move. I don't know who you are.
Yeah, that was.
I'm Thanos from 6 years ago.
Yeah. So in my theater with the people I was with, the big headline splashy moment, which I think was probably for everybody who saw the movie, was Captain America grabbing the hammer.
Oh my God.
That was pretty cool. I'm not a big Cap fan.
I'm not. I think everyone. I'm not a big Cap fan either. What did you think of him picking up the hammer?
I mean, it was epic, and it was like a whole affirmation that like he is a boss because like he's this like worthy guy, right? That's all he is worthy and strong, right? And so it was like, because people have tried to pick up that hammer throughout this whole 22
series,
movies, right? And nobody's done it. And it was like
Vision picked it up.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, and everybody was kind of just like, what the fuck?
Okay, true. All right.
But no one said, and Vision
He's a
was just
robot.
like, what?
He's fake.
What's the big deal? Yeah.
So, yeah, that was cool. And yeah, my favorite part I already mentioned was when he punched her with the Power Stone because it was just improvising. I love that moment. People were saying how like you're going to shed a tear and wish Tony Stark was your dad. I thought that was a little bit of an
I didn't wish he
overstatement.
was my dad.
Somebody
That's
said that.
crazy.
Somebody said that. They were saying when you see it, that's what you're gonna wish. And I was like, I don't know.
Tony Stark. No, I did think it was special that he had a child. I really liked that. No. I was gonna say the Captain America with the hammer. I loved it. I was excited, but a part of me was kind of annoyed. Like, Marvel, you need to give us a little bit more of an explanation about why is he... Okay, he's able to pick up the hammer is one thing, but he was, like, flipping the joint around like he was Thor himself, and he summoned up the lightning, and I was like, Cap... How do you just know how to do all this, harnessing lightning on your first time ever? Was there some behind the scenes training that him and Thor were doing, or?
I mean, he's good with a weapon, so I'll give him the spinning stuff. I didn't think he could summon.
He was wielding lightning.
The lightning, because I thought Thor was the god of thunder,
lightning, exactly.
and I didn't know it was because of the hammer. I don't think it's because of the hammer.
It's not because of the hammer. Because remember when Thor's dad was like, "You don't need that. You're the god of thunder and lightning," and then he.
So I was surprised when he was able to do that.
Part blew me.
I got that he's like righteous enough to wield it. I was like, that's cool. So I mean, it was good.
Yeah, it was
a good
awesome.
movie.
The only part that made a tear drop, I'm not gonna lie, there was a few moments where I was like, someone's got water in my eyes. Who's dripping water from back there? It's getting
that was
in my
a lot
eyes.
of us. That was a lot of us.
But then at the very end, when Captain America handed the shield off to Sam, I was like, is this tear going to fall right now? Because I've successfully not. It's only 5 minutes left of the movie. Like, this tear, oh, damn, there it goes.
Yep.
Fuck, oh, damn it. That was probably, and I don't want to call it my favorite moment because there were so many good moments, but that was the one moment that made a tear fall out of my
protesters all over Charlottesville were enraged at that moment. What?
No, we can't. Virginia's a great place. They let the people vote. Come on.
True. No, that's why I said Charlottesville, not all Virginia, just the Tiki Torch guys.
You want to know what blew me the most out of the whole movie?
Yes.
The fact that I went out of my way to go to the movie theaters last month to see Captain Marvel. I thought it was going to be this big piece to the movie. I thought she was going to come through and be the savior. They really hyped it up. They had Nick Fury dropping the call and all this. They just hyped up Captain Marvel, and she essentially didn't do much of anything to save the universe. She came through. She brought Tony Stark back at the beginning, which, successfully was a big piece to it. But then she was like, there's a huge universe out there. I'm going to be gone for a while, and proceeded to disappear forever, and then came back at the end all posted up like she was Tony Stark on the porch at the funeral, and I was like, you didn't do anything. And when you tried to take the glove off Thanos, you didn't successfully do that either. So why are you here?
I mean,
we need to give Doctor Strange way more credit.
I think it was the timing of the movie that maybe misled you, that you thought she was going to be a key piece. She just happened to be the last one introduced.
No, I think that Marvel intentionally misled us.
What about the scene? What about the female empowerment scene?
Oh, that's
when it was
the part.
all the chicks were like, "I'm about to do this."
Oh man, that wasn't my favorite moment because it felt like pandering. If it was, it should have been a little bit more genuine.
Because there was no reason for it. It was really clearly obvious that all the women got together here, and I guess presumably the men were all scattered throughout the battlefield.
Right.
But it did give you a little sense of
it gave
cool.
me. I said. But then I don't remember who said something to me about how much I liked Captain Marvel, but I was like, it's like the feminist anthem of like 2019. Like, the movie is so clearly feminist. So then when she was standing in the center and then all the women came up and I was like, see what Captain Marvel has done to us? Even Pepper out here in the Iron Man suit, clearly just like pandering towards feminism. There's no reason for Pepper to be out here fighting Thanos. Pepper is not a hero.
Right.
Why would Pepper wake up one day and say, you know what?
Just because you got a laser beam
Let me
on your
call
hand.
my mama and ask her to come get this girl because, hey, Mom. Yeah, I got to go. Thanos is coming. Tony done left me this suit. I'll be back. I'm going to come back and get him. I don't know if I'm ever coming back, Mama.
Right. Right. It was real out of the blue.
Pepper, what are you doing? I loved it when she flew through. I definitely let out a little yelp. But there was no real and legitimate reason other than the fact that I think Marvel is introducing us to the fact that the new Iron Man is probably going to be a woman wearing that suit. It's not going to be Pepper, obviously.
Right.
But yeah.
All right. It was a good time.
The
it was a good
scene
movie.
Definitely moved me, and I was like, yes, Gamora. I don't know why I like Gamora so much. I can't figure it out. I just like her. Can I talk about Thanos now?
Yeah.
And then,
wrap it up.
We can wrap it up, but I have been an avid defender of Thanos, not because I necessarily think that people deserve to die, even though it's, somewhere in there, the idea of like sacrifice so that everyone could benefit. I do think there's a level of respectability in that theory. I mean, the world is overpopulated and we are all struggling here. I think that there is enough for us all. We just have to be willing to share it. But unfortunately, we are not currently willing to share it. So something drastic maybe has to be done. Anyway, that's my political theory. It's not about Thanos. Thanos is a noble man. I think Thanos is a respectable man. I think that he does what it takes to achieve his own destiny. He's committed to his destiny because he truly believes that it's going to be better for people. He doesn't want to be a bad guy. He doesn't want to be a murderer. He doesn't want to fight and be a villain. He just wants everyone to be happy. And he thinks that, okay, well, if we're all sad because there is no resources, if there was less people, then those who are left would all be happy. We would have peace and utopia. Like, his goal is utopian society. That's his ultimate goal. And he's willing to sacrifice any and everybody, including himself. So in the scene where they're looking at Nebula's memory card and he sees Thor come through and slice off his own head, knowing that he successfully achieved his dream moments before that, he said, okay, but that is destiny fulfilled. And I said, that's why I fucking love this guy.
He's a boss.
He didn't get upset. He didn't say, oh my God, my own life. He said, right. So if I have to be the one to die for this to happen, then I have to be the one to die, even if I know they're going to slice off my arm and then slice off my head. That's my destiny before my eyes. And it has been worth it. And I said, man, that is one gentleman that...
He just keeps making me love him more and more.
Yeah, but then at the end when he was like, so you didn't appreciate what I did. I guess I have to wipe out the entire universe and rebirth a new one. I said, I don't know if I can still get down with that, I still like the guy, but... No, I still respect him, but I don't like that idea. He didn't put enough thought into it, and he was ready to execute it immediately. And that's when I was like, that I can't fucks with, because you didn't think about that enough for you to be ready to dive in and do it right here in this moment. You just came up with it right now. So, all in all, though, would watch the movie again, would definitely still rock with Thanos. I told Steve Discourse this morning, even knowing that he loses in the end, I would ride with Thanos and watch the clock for the rest of my life. Like when 2019 come, I know I got to dip and switch sides with the Avengers, but for now, I need to learn from this guy. I got to sit at this guy's feet because that's how much I respect him and his commitment to his ultimate destiny of a utopia. I respect it.
That is a mess. But it was a good movie. I loved it.
It was a
I had
great
a lot of fun.
movie.
I had a lot of fun. And we're going to leave it there. That's it. That was it. There was a lot of big spoilers there, so...
They knew.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. You have to say that's the deal, Steve.
I already said it earlier.
Okay, you have to say it again. People, come on, be professional.
That's the deal.